Chapter 1: The Cyclone. Dorothy lived in the state of Kansas with her Uncle Henry and her Aunt Em. They all lived in a little wooden house in the middle of the great Kansas prairie. The land was very flat and there were no trees or other houses nearby. Uncle Henry was a farmer and he had built the wooden house himself many years before. The house only had one room. That room was used for eating and for sleeping in too. There was a little hole under the house that was called the cyclone cellar. The family hid in the cellar when the strong winds of a cyclone blew across the prairie. The hot sun had burnt the paint on the little house. Now the paint on the house was gray. The sun had burnt the land around the house too. Everything on the prairie was gray. Uncle Henry and Aunt Em had gray hair and gray, tired faces. Dorothy's Uncle Henry and Aunt Em were poor and they had worked very hard all their lives. It was not easy to be a farmer on the prairie and Uncle Henry was always very tired. He never smiled and Aunt Em always looked sad too. But Dorothy was always laughing. The girl had a little black dog called Toto. Dorothy played with Toto all day long. But today, Dorothy and Toto were not playing. Uncle Henry was standing with Dorothy in the doorway of the little house. He was looking at the gray sky and he was very worried. Then they heard the sound of a strong wind. It was coming from the south. It whistled and roared. It blew the long grass of the prairie until it was flat. "There's a cyclone coming, Em," Uncle Henry called to his wife. "Get into the cyclone cellar. You get in too, Dorothy. I'll look after the cows and horses. Quick, Dorothy. Get inside." Aunt Em cried as she opened the wooden trap door to the cellar. Aunt Em climbed down through the trap door into the little hole. Dorothy ran into the house with Toto. But the little dog was afraid of the wind. He jumped down from Dorothy's arms and ran under her bed. Dorothy caught him quickly and ran back across the room. But it was too late. The wind had blown into the house and shut the trap door. Dorothy could not get into the cyclone cellar. The wind blew harder and harder. The little house shook and Dorothy fell down onto the floor. Then a strange thing happened. Uncle Henry and Aunt Em's house began to move. It turned around and went up and up. It was in the center of the cyclone where the north and south winds met. The winds pushed the boughs higher and higher, like a balloon. The little house was carried over the prairie for miles and miles. Many hours went by. It was very dark now and the wind went on making its terrible roaring sound. At last Dorothy lay down on her bed with Toto beside her. The girl closed her eyes and she was soon fast asleep. Hours later, Dorothy was woken up by a hard bump. Everything had gone still. The house had stopped turning and bright sunshine filled the room with light.